We're seeing the market make some really major moves today after what's been a relatively scary past couple of days, constantly testing some major supports and ultimately showing a little bit of shakiness within the crypto space, as well as an unbelievable amount of liquidations coming in. So wanted to be talking about all of that, what we're going to be seeing going on, and just some of the things that, in my opinion, we should all be keeping in mind as we're looking to navigate this crypto market. So let's go ahead, we'll dive right on in. First off, taking a look at the crypto bubbles, where we can see we are looking at a green day right now. Not green all across the board, there are some reds here and there, but the majority of cryptos here being in the green. We are seeing Aster continue to kind of be super volatile and dominate a lot of the scene here. Haven't really done too much with Aster quite yet, just because this is an interesting one that we'll just kind of have to see how it plays out. I mean, you can see other things like EtherFi and Immutable and Quant, even Pi's moving a little bit today. Pi's had a very rough run over the past several months. We'll have to see how that goes. But overall, you can see a slight move up in the market, but it is definitely still a mixed market for sure, with certain things like Aerodrome and Hyperliquid and even like Athena and Solana that have actually done really, really well over the past couple of months, actually kind of being the ones that are down on the day in the market. So we can actually see here as well, we are seeing a nice little bounce out of XRP. Our trade now back up about 25% after nearly getting liquidated, but we're just low enough on our stop loss here. We could see a nice little bounce. It actually is kind of seeming to look like our entry level that we got into is kind of looking like a decent level of support here. So we'll just kind of have to see how that goes. Again, overall, just kind of looking to hold that into the foreseeable future. If you are interested, of course, in trading, I do have those links in the description below to BloFin, Weex, or BTCC. BTCC does have the best deposit bonus right now with 10% free in first-time deposits. But again, totally up to you. You can kind of decide to do whatever you want with that. Those are just kind of some various options for you. They are exclusive affiliate links as well, so you do get those exclusive bonuses only if you do use my links. Now, moving along, I want to take a look at kind of what we've seen over the past couple of days. It's been really kind of volatile, not like volatile like we've seen in the past, but for Bitcoin and crypto, as it started to kind of really lose actually a lot of its volatility, we have seen a lot of different things happening. So first off, we can take a look here and see on the Bitcoin chart, we are seeing a nice little move up today after a past couple of days of kind of a decent move to the downside here. Again, nothing really too crazy happening here. We did get a lot of kind of fear jumping into the market after a relatively small move to the downside here, but we are seeing that start to come back a little bit. This 112,000 range has really held as a very strong level of support here, so we'll have to see if that continues. Obviously, we did see some wicks below in each of the past 3 days, but at least for right now, we do appear to be above it. Again, time will tell in terms of kind of what happens here and what comes next. It would not surprise me if we did see a further move back to the downside, maybe even retesting this 107,000 level. You can see over the past several months, we've actually kind of been at or near these all-time high ranges. And so, there is that possibility that we continue to see a further pullback, or maybe we just, we continue to bounce and move on up here. But I think the crazy thing to note, if we look, we really have not seen too much volatility over the past kind of couple of years. Obviously, the move from January to April and then back to, let's call it July, was pretty volatile in kind of the scheme of things here, going from 108 down to 72, 73, and then back up to 120. Definitely some volatility going on there. But if you look over the past couple of years, most of the time, we actually have not seen too much movement. It's just kind of a little bit here and there, and then we see a really nice run to the upside. At least has been the case over the past couple of years. I'm sure there will be a point in time which we do see a bit of a crash, but at least from right now, we have seen a pretty decent move. Now, I did want to show you where we're looking at with liquidations to indicate that, it's not guaranteed that we continue to go further up here. On the 1 day, we do actually still see a kind of a bias towards moving to the downside, where more liquidity for long liquidations are. We also can see on the 7 day, we're a little flipped. So now we can see on the 7 day, there's actually more liquidity for liquidating shorts and moving to the upside. And then on the 30 day, we are back to kind of having more of a bias on liquidating longs. And liquidating longs and moving to the downside here. So that's kind of what we have going on in the Bitcoin exchange liquidation map. So even though we have seen some kind of volume and some pressure down to the downside, we're not really seeing, super strong signals indicating that we do see a move back to the upside, which I did just want to make clear. I did want to go over some of our altcoins here that we want to be talking about. And the reason why is because a lot of these altcoins that we're going to be going over are essentially, I would call them pretty narrative heavy altcoins. Of course, many of them do have their own benefits and things that they are doing, but all of them do seem to move quite strongly off of narrative. And so I wanted to talk about something in particular that I found was an interesting post. Now, of course, this is me not giving you an indication one direction or the other in terms of what you should do. I'm just essentially putting out kind of the claim in the sense that I agree with it. This is a claim from Alex Becker. You can see, he says, if it's the top, you're about to lose about 50% on majors and 70% on mid to low cap alts. If it's not, you're about to make 4 to 5x on majors and 10 to 20x on mid to low cap alts. This is the most lopsided bet you'll ever see in finance. Don't overthink it. It's simply worth a shot. I quite agree with this take, as I was kind of prefacing here. I think it makes a lot of sense. And what is really, really important for people to understand is there is no guarantee that it is going to go to the upside. As Alex Becker mentions, there is a possibility in which you do lose 50 to 70% of the money that you put in. There's also another possibility in which you make a heck of a lot more than that to the upside if we do see crypto go into that type of phase. So ultimately, this is more of a question about you deciding what you think is going to happen and just kind of voting with your dollars, right? I mean, that's how markets work generally. And so I think that's what's really important to understand here. And I wanted to show you as we go through some of these altcoins that we're going to be talking about, I think they could be some of the largest beneficiaries from a crypto alt season, just purely from a narrative perspective. So we're going to be starting out, we've actually already looked through XRP. We'll go back through XRP again, but first one, we're going to be taking a look at Onyxcoin. Onyxcoin, you can see off of some good news, did like a 20x in the span of like 6 days. It did an absolutely insane move. Since then, we have seen it kind of continually consolidating back down to this level, actually below the 1 cent range. We are seeing a little bit of support here, kind of at the 1 cent range. So, maybe we see that continue to hold. Again, hard to say for sure. We don't actually know, but there is that possibility that we do kind of hold this 1 cent range. Another one that it seems to be incredibly, and I would say even increasingly more narrative based here is Jasmy. Now, Jasmy is kind of falling out of this wedge that it had kind of been forming. Maybe we see it come back in, but overall, we haven't really seen Jasmy do particularly well recently. It's kind of sleeping right now. But again, as you see, when it has these points where it hits the narrative, it just goes absolutely parabolic. And so I do think that we could see something like this happening again with Jasmy, again, at some point in the near future, or maybe not even near future, but like the mid future. Now, I want to take a look at Aerodrome as well. I personally think, in my own opinion, the Aerodrome has the strongest fundamentals of all of them, but it still is very narrative based in the sense that it's on the Base ecosystem. It's kind of, there's rumors of it being connected to Coinbase. It's performed quite well from a technical perspective. You can see here, this is the first time at which we're starting to see kind of a break of that higher low, at least in more of the microstructure. We can come all the way back down to this green line to still see kind of more of a macro higher low. So that is always a possibility. But, AERO is another one that's been very, very strong and could get even stronger in a kind of narrative environment where Base is really taking off and having success. The last one I want to take a look at is, of course, XRP, because on XRP, you can see this one has just been performing absolutely wonderfully this entire cycle. It's been smashing, particularly since after the US election. It absolutely mooned and has held up quite nicely, because what we can see here is when we've kind of put in some of these floors, here it was down at about the $2 range before we moved up and kind of made new highs. Now it appears, at least currently, we're putting in a floor between, like, let's call it the 280 and let's say the $2.65 range. This is where we're putting a decent bit of volume in and still holding above. That is what we can see right now with the current XRP chart, and that's why we do have that XRP trade open. So we'll have to see, of course, how it develops over the coming days and weeks, but I am still feeling very confident about how XRP is performing right now. And as you know, I mean, XRP is probably the OG. They are like the narrative coin in terms of like, you know, retail sentiment and just overall just general crypto bullish sentiment. So I am going to be very interested to see how all of these do end up performing. And I do think a lot of them will be tied to kind of the level of the greed and the hype and the, you know, all of that type of stuff that we end up seeing as it comes into an alt season. Now, the next thing to kind of couple along with Alex Becker's statement of this being an upside or a asymmetrical play is we have, of course, here on CoinGlass, the bull market peak indicators. This shows you when various peak indicators have been hit. And currently, out of 30, only one of them has actually been hit, and that is the ETF to Bitcoin ratio. And that is something that we have hit. Otherwise, the other 29 indicators have still not been hit. Some of them further away from others. You can see something like the Bitcoin AHR 999 index. We're only about a quarter of the way there. We can see things from like the Bitcoin Rainbow chart. We're 60% of the way there. We have some others that are around 30%. Even something like the Bitcoin Bubble index is down at 16%. So, you know, really, really far away. And then we do have some others like altcoin season. It's 90% of the way there. Bitcoin dominance is 90% of the way there almost. Long-term holder supply, 87% of the way there. There's a whole bunch of different things here that we can see that, you know, some are creeping up, some are getting close, but still only one of the 30 actually getting hit so far. So I do still think that there is room to run here in this crypto cycle. That is my personal bias. I could be right, I could be wrong. The other option here is that, you know, maybe we have hit the top and this was the lamest crypto cycle ever. Maybe, right? I mean, that's completely a possible outcome, and it is something that you should be prepared for. You should be prepared for all outcomes. I currently, of course, am prepared for all outcomes, but I, as if it's not obvious, am kind of heavily biased and positioned toward a move to the upside. If it collapses and all goes to the downside, yes, it will feel bad, but I am responsible, and so I'm positioned correctly, where if we do see a lot of that, I'm holding things that I don't care to hold for several years. I'm largely allocated into Bitcoin. Don't care if Bitcoin goes down. If Bitcoin goes down 95% tomorrow, I would be buying an obscene amount of Bitcoin. So, you know, that I'm always positioned for kind of the next move, whatever that ends up looking like. And of course, you know, you need to be making your own decisions in terms of how you manage your funds and your money specifically. But hopefully this does help in terms of giving kind of a baseline or a general idea of how I'm looking at things. So again, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on where you're thinking the altcoin market goes next. Do we see an alt season? Do you think that it's just kind of out of the cards at this point? What do you think is going to happen in terms of kind of some of, you know, October? We are getting closer to the end of September. We have seen, of course, you know, kind of an expectedly volatile September, just given a lot of the fear and concern within the market. But we'll have to see. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. I do try to read and respond to all of those, as well as if you did find the information in the video useful. I would, of course, appreciate a like and a subscribe. It does help me out. Liking the video is the freest way that you can support me, and it does, of course, help a ton. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.